Now we are back. I have to wait for Benito to give me the heads up
I'm
here.
throwing all kind of gang signs and
Yeah,
hand movements at him.
one of these days, just about the time I get figured out what I'm supposed to do here, I'll be done
I
here.
throw you a curveball
Yeah,
or
right.
something, right?
So today we have Dr. Tripp from Better Health with Tripp Family Medicine, and he's going to talk to us about a doctor of osteopathic medicine.
Yeah, we're going to try to
Uh,
answer the question, what is a DO?
what do
Okay,
they
I don't know what
what do
it
they
is.
do, and why should I be concerned about them, and how can they help me?
That's a great question because when I can joke about that. You say, what do they do? Well, isn't that what's at the end of the name? My name says Dr. Jonathan Tripp DO, so that says I do,
You do. Yeah,
right?
there you
So
go.
I do.
that's what I do.
What do you do?
Let me kind of give you a little quick background. There's the Doctor of Osteopathic Medicine is what a DO stands for, and um, in the U.S. there are two types of physician that are considered full privileged physician and surgeon, and that is your medical doctors, your MDs, which in the real tradition stands for an allopathic medicine. Allopathic doctor. I won't get off into all the details about that, but an osteopathic doctor, a DO, is the only one in the U.S. considered as a full-fledged physician and surgeon. So DOs traditionally have been known as similar to a chiropractor, kind of like a physical therapist, because they're trained in a lot of hands-on medicine. So, like the chiropractor will pop and crunch your neck and back, the DO is trained in that as well as quite a few other modalities of hands-on or what's called physical medicine. In fact, the MDs over the last 20 years have really taken on to a subspecialty called physical medicine and rehab, and that has been, uh, you know, often trained with or by osteopathic physicians. So that's an area where there's value has been seen in this hands-on stuff, and rather than even to the point of just taking that as a specialty, like family medicine or cardiology as a
Hmm.
specialty. So let me give you a quick little history. DOs began by an MD who was disgruntled with his lack of ability to save his family from a flu epidemic in the late 1800s. The guy was a Civil War doctor. His last name is Still, Andrew Taylor Still, and he in 1892 started a school in a little podunk town in Missouri,
Huh.
which is still kind of the Harvard of the DO programs, and that's the school I went to. So it's a 120-year-old school, been around a long time, but over the course of our two world wars, what the U.S. government was finding out is that they're sending all the local family practice docs, the MDs, off to war,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this group of DOs that were taking care of the general population in ways that kind of was under the radar of the government. And pretty quickly, by the end of World War II, they were recruiting the DOs into the war as well, and became really known as they're the full-fledged physician as well, but from kind of a different philosophy background.
Hmm.
And with the advent of penicillin, the DOs who had been pretty anti-medicines up to that point, because most of our medicines up to that point were compounded with arsenic and cyanide.
Okay.
Um,
Real good stuff, right?
yeah, good for
Whoa.
you. They got onto this kind of what now we complain about the pharmaceutical industry, but found that antibiotics and other things that came out were really quite helpful. And so in combining that with the hands-on medicine, the chiropractor group diverted away from that and never did accept medicines, uh, and so as a result, the chiropractors remain chiropractors, and with their hands-on and their expertise has grown in the alternative or the complementary medicine area, where the DOs became more like the MDs, but maintaining their background with this fix the body and it'll take care of itself attitude.
Huh. So let you
So
heal yourself, essentially. I
yeah,
mean,
in fact,
almost, right?
Or help you heal yourself.
that's a totally different philosophy. In a DO program, you're taught kind of the main tenets of what an osteopath is, and the word osteopath means a bone doctor.
Uh-huh.
So that can be confused with an orthopedic surgeon, and you have DOs that are orthopedic surgeons. In fact, we have some in town. Um, so you have excellent surgeons, but being an osteopath has some tenets like the body is a unit. And as a DO, you study the body as a whole. You look for the interactions between systems rather than just simply learn the cardiovascular system or the pulmonary system or the renal system
Hmm.
or the nervous system. And you really try to tie together how does one affect the other. Whereas most MD training, until probably quite recently, has been focused on systems.
Okay.
So,
So you take the car apart and you look at just the brakes
right,
or the transmission,
that's a
not the whole car, right?
that's a great example,
Okay.
and you might know that rotors get torn up if your brakes are undone, but
Hmm.
you're not really aware of how the hydraulics in general are changing throughout the car because your brakes are faulty.
Well,
We
we
have
got a
to take a
break.
break. We'll be right back with Dr. Tripp. Welcome back. Thank you for being with us. We have Dr. Tripp from the Tripp Family Medicine Center, the Better Health with the Tripp Family Medicine. We're talking about your specialty and how we can use that as an approach to our health problems and health solutions. And you say it's more along the line of helping the body help itself.
Yeah, the term holistic medicine has become a real popular term for the last 15, 20 years. And what's interesting is that the osteopathic tradition has been to look at the body as a whole, and that's one of their main tenets. They also talk about the body has its own self healing and self regulating mechanisms. And with that tenet drilled into your head as a student, you start to realize that even though you're the physician, you're not the healer. You really are the assistant to the body healing itself. And so that gives a little different perspective when you're dealing with a patient, and you realize that, almost in spite of you, things tend to get better. So that's the beauty of being in family medicine is most of the people I'm seeing aren't, at death's door, and I can do what I know to do, and if it doesn't work, even then sometimes the body takes care of itself, and then I look good, and that's really what's important here, is that I look good. Um, but the truth is, it brings a little degree of humility to the physician, and it's not that all DOs are humble because there's plenty that have egos bigger than any MD I know. But the truth is the tradition of osteopathy is you're assisting. You are not the healer, and the body is really what's taking care of itself. So with that, there's a lot of room for looking at what else might help. And DOs, because initially, they were disregarded as no different than, a chiropractor. Which don't get me wrong, chiropractors have a beautiful spot in our healthcare and do lots of good things for us. But they're limited by regulation now. But the DOs were thought to be the same limitation. And so as a result, a lot of the things that we consider alternative or complementary medicine, the DOs are more open to than most of the MD counterparts. And so if I have a patient that comes in and says, I really want to work only with herbs, or I don't want to take any prescription medicine, or, I don't think this is a good idea for my children, um, I'm really, because of that background, a lot more open to saying, well, let's talk about ideas. Remember that I come from an evidence-based medical background, so I'm going to try to use the best knowledge we have out there, realizing that that knowledge can change, but really taking on the attitude, if we're trying something for a patient that won't hurt them, let's try it.
Okay.
And so, but there are natural things, like I mentioned earlier, cyanide and arsenic, they're natural and they kill you.
Right.
So to say,
Yeah, right.
everything natural is wonderful is not
Hmm.
true,
Right.
So
We were just
first,
talking about water being
Yeah.
dangerous. So,
yeah, no,
Now, keep in mind that the doctor is available this morning. We'd like to have your phone call, 736-0300. Call in and ask a question.
well, and I'd love to hear from anybody who's had some experience, especially if you had some unique experience with a DO in the past. And I'm not saying DOs are the end all to beat all, but they have a view that is more primary care, more comprehensive. In fact, in our training, we were told over and over, you are first a general practitioner and second a specialist, which, went against the grain because my plan was to be a transplant thoracic surgeon, had no intent of being, the family practitioner that I am today. But a part of that came about because of that chronic or constant brainwashing, I'll call it, to say you got to look at the whole before you get to specialize.
We have a call this morning. Thank you. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you for your explanation of a DO. I am diabetic, and I do know that there are certain herbs and things that can improve the liver function. Is there anything that can be done to improve the kidney function, the kidney flush, or anything like that? And I'll listen off here, okay?
Thank you
very much.
Boy, that's a great question, because in diabetes, kidney function is one of our main concerns that we're trying to make sure is being cared for. And I'll give you kind of the short on the, shall we say, evidence-based medicine, and that is anybody who is diabetic should be on a type of a medication called an ACE inhibitor. It's actually a blood pressure medicine, but its main function for the diabetic is to improve and protect the kidney as long as we can, because the kidney's being beat up by small vessels being clogged due to the diabetes. As far as kind of an herbal flush, anything like that, I really don't have enough expertise to say this is a much better thing. I'll give you an example. A lot of people say use milk thistle for a liver flush. Um, I don't have one for the kidney. I do know that some basics about not having high protein diet, and making sure you're switching to water rather than other, especially carbonated drinks. Those are just beating on that kidney all the time. Yeah, there you go. Steve's guilty.
Soda.
Holding up his soda right there.
Right.
So to answer the question, not like a politician, I don't know of an herbal solution for that. And the truth is I would be open to hearing from somebody that has a naturopathic background, and they might say, "Hey, use this or look at that." And still, if I get that information, I'm looking for some type of study or evidence to say this will actually do you some good. But first, I'm looking to see if it'll do you harm. So
Right.
I encourage you to look for other sources, because if we don't know, we don't have an answer. And that is part of my job, is to be able to say when I don't know what to do with this, let's find other help. And sometimes that's a specialist, and sometimes that's somebody who really practices purely complementary medicine.
So if someone comes in with that kind of a question, and you go through your process, you're very much amenable to seeking outside sources and additional helps and information to help you with your prognosis and get the patient back on track.
I am, and I, in a way, practice some of that medicine, if you will, some complementary medicine, which I really don't think of it that way, but I'm looking for alternatives. I'll give you a great example. We live in an area that is epidemically low in vitamin D. And so vitamin D is a fat-based or oil-based vitamin that builds up in your system, and you can get too much. Whereas if you have good kidneys, you can take all the vitamin C you want because it's water soluble, and your kidneys will get rid of it the same day what you don't use. That's not true with vitamin D, so I can't just give a blanket statement and say everybody ought to take a whole bunch of vitamin D. But I can check blood levels, and I can monitor that, and I can help you raise that up quickly. What's the benefit? Well, mood is probably the biggest thing I see.
You mean if I have more vitamin D, I could become a happier person?
Yeah, I won't call you the grouch. No, no, sorry.
There's a lot of people that want to find out where I can get more vitamin D.
They have a vested interest. Yeah. No, the vitamin D is one of the things that I am known to be a pusher of. And there's lots of little studies that say it helps everything from, your mood and your focus and your energy level to fighting off colds to even less chance of atrial fibrillation, but they aren't big studies. So I appreciate the fact that I don't have big thousands of people in a study to prove that it helps all these different things. On the other hand, I'm making sure that I don't overdo by monitoring the blood, making sure we don't get you into a problem where it'll actually make you feel ill.
Okay.
So that is in one way that I'm more like the complementary medicine that's practiced by a naturopath or maybe a chiropractor. But I'm doing it with the evidence rather than just saying, oh, everybody ought to have, one size fits all.
Right.
Right.
So what's a major source of vitamin D?
The sun and your
Sun.
skin.
Okay.
I mean, we have our dairy industry pushes and says, "Hey, we are the source for calcium, for vitamin D," and the truth is they are good sources. But I wouldn't tell you to drink a gallon of milk a day for lots of weight reasons.
Right, because the
You
other
know,
consequences,
yeah,
right?
there's other consequences, and yet the sun, I wouldn't tell you to go out and do 2 hours a day whenever you get a chance, or go up skiing and take your shirt off. That'd probably be a bad choice for your skin. So
Okay.
it's a balance. And over the counter, in my experience, over the counter vitamin D actually is better absorbed than the prescription vitamin D2 that I was raised on. So
Okay.
I've found with my own experience kind of a better way, and I have a physician assistant that teases me all the time about being Dr. Sunshine. So it's a lot of fun, and so but that's kind of the background that allows me to look for alternative answers to questions or to things that normally we aren't paying a lot of attention to. But all the time, I have people come in and saying, my mood's bad, my energy's down, what's wrong with me? And sometimes it's the thyroid, and sometimes it's vitamin D, but there's lots of other possibilities. And but sometimes I hit a home run, by
Great.
giving them the right stuff.
Okay.
We have another caller. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Haven't called in for a while, and this is the first time I called in to talk to Dr. Tripp. But what you just touched on, as far as like the vitamin D and can't drink a gallon of milk a day, that's an important thing. A lot of people that are pre-diabetic or diabetic don't understand. And I have been diagnosed diabetic since I was about 32, and I'm 49 now. And I can't drink milk like I used to, so I have to find my vitamins and my nutrition in other ways.
Absolutely. No, I grew up a milk baby, so I can commiserate with anybody that says you got to limit your milk intake. So the beauty is that you've gained some understanding towards dietary control, because lots of calories, pretty depending on what kind of milk you're drinking, can be a high fat content, and you have trace amounts of some minerals and vitamins that are beautiful, but you know the consequence is you're going to gain a lot of weight and push your diabetes the wrong direction if you're drinking a ton of milk. Although moderation is a beautiful thing, and I can't hardly have brownies without milk. So I'm not here to say don't drink milk.
Gotta-
All right.
I'm glad to hear he has brownies and milk.
That's right.
I'm restored
From
here.
the doctor.
From the doctor.
You
We
are
have another call.
We have another caller.
You're absolved. Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome to the show. Whoa, they gave up on us.
Let's try this one. We have good morning. You're in
Good
Top
morning.
Story with Dr. Tripp.
Yes, good morning. I was kind of curious, if somebody says you have a high iron level in your blood, what could that be caused from?
Well, there's you've been chewing on rusty fences, or think
Barbed wire, right?
But, no, the high iron is a concern mainly for a family or a hereditary condition called hemochromatosis, which is a buildup of iron in your bloodstream, but also affects the liver. And it is worth checking out. It's worth getting the details by doing probably more blood work to make sure you really do have high iron. They may even go as far as talking about doing a liver biopsy to see whether you have this condition or not. And the main treatment, at least as far as I understand, and has been for years, is you basically donate blood that they get rid of about, depending on how severe your case is, once a month or every couple of months. You literally just get rid of a pint of blood, and then your body builds it up again, and you take out some more.
And the replacement, the blood that your body replaces with, will not have quite the same concentration of iron.
It's because you keep taking it away, so you're kind of diluting it.
Okay,
Yeah.
dilution process.
So it protects you from the harmful effects of too much iron, which is pretty rare for most people. They're the opposite end of that spectrum.
Okay. Well, we got about a minute left before you leave. Give us your contact information, how they can get a hold of you.
Awesome. We're at Tripp Family Medicine. So the website is trippfamilymedicine.com, and our phone number is 933-4400. That's 933-4400, and we are also on Facebook at Tripp Family Medicine. So love to hear from you. Want you to send your children, your grandchildren, and give me a couple of kids to play with every day. I don't care if they're sick. We have a good time anyway.
Great. And your office is located on Fillmore Street across from the post office building.
That's correct. We're the only ones with Christmas lights around the office right
Okay,
now.
well, easy to find
good
right
for
there.
you. That's what we like to hear. Good for you.
And we'll plan to see you next week. We're gonna
Yes.
we're gonna have a hot topic, but so far it's secret. So,
Oh, it's a
yeah.
secret. Okay.
So you have to join us on the show to figure out what we're doing.
That's right. And we're gonna have to throw out friends in Venezuela. Pay attention to what's going on in that country.
Yeah, we got to get
Apply it to our country.
Yep, big election down there.
All right.
Doctor, thank you for coming in. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Sure, welcome.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll be back in the next hour. Top story.
Yep. We
hope
hope
we got another guest.
We hope
Hopefully.
we have another guest. If everything works well, we should have a phone call from Washington right after the news.
And it's not who you think.
Right.
The NSA?